Welcome back to Sunday Vibes 1-0. We're back in the Rookery pub on Clapham Common. Look who's with me today, Zachary Jalab, Christopher Hamill. Boys, how are we?
Good, thank you very much. Yeah, not too bad.
It's a very black t-shirt vibe going on today, isn't it? A bit boy bandy.
Yeah, what
bit
can I
boy
say?
bandy. But
Shows off the muscles.
Is this a Uniqlo number?
It is a Uniqlo number.
Best
If you
t-shirts
are
out there.
watching-
is that a Uniqlo number? Oh, so you're both wearing this, not only the same
different
black
material
tee,
though.
but-
Different material.
But they're both the same brand of Uniqlo.
If
so
they
it's
are
incredible.
watching, sponsor us.
Okay.
Best basic tees out there.
It is.
And that is a free
100%.
plug.
100%.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it.
They do have very good basic tees. Right, you guys have been sending in your questions all week. Swagato is back. Sent in the main one. Shout out Swagato. He says, if United fail to win any trophies this season, should Ollie get sacked? Which I think is just ridiculous to be bringing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sacking up already. So we've kind of pivoted it a little bit, haven't we? We've kind of pivoted it to looking at a lot of different clubs' problems this season and how they can overcome them. Do we
Yeah.
want to start with United, get it out of the way, because that is what Swagato wants us to talk about.
Oh yeah, the way we've pivoted this is the level, the calibre of squad that Ollie now has at his disposal. Will that become a problem for him, expectation-wise?
Yeah.
Because now he has to deliver,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so from basic T's to basic B's, do you want to take over Manchester United, mate?
I mean, there's definitely more pressure on Ollie, I think, than there has been over the last few seasons. But I think that is inherently the case when you sign the calibre of player he's been able to sign. And he's now had a couple of summers, he's had a couple of windows. It's very much his squad now. He's been able to turf out some of the players he wasn't happy with. He's brought in quite a lot of new faces and spent quite a lot of money since he's been at United. Not too many excuses left for him in the book. But I think all the chat about like, oh, he's going to be sacked if he doesn't do this, going to be sacked if he doesn't do that. I think it's really early to be talking about Ollie being sacked. I think he is going to be under more pressure, but I back him to deliver.
I want to get this in there nice and early. What is your level of expectation for Manchester United for this season?
I think he's got to finish within 5 points of the title winners.
Okay.
If he did that and then didn't win a trophy.
And he has to win a trophy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he has to deliver silverware this season, I think, for me. And he has to, okay, he might not win the Premier League because, you know, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, all absolutely exceptional. It's not like United are comfortably the best team in the league and it's that level of pressure. So I think within sort of 5-6 points, which would be an improvement on last season, and to win some form of silverware, be a good season for United and definitely a step in the right direction. So I back him to do it, first and foremost, Ollie. I think it might take a little bit of time to get going this season. I wouldn't be surprised to see some poor results at the start because I think he's still trying to work out where these new faces fit into the team. He started last season very slowly. Let's not forget around October we were like in 14th or something like that. So it was a much better second half of the season. I think that might be the case again this year, but I'll back him. I think he's going to have a good year.
Have you been worried about any of the games so far this season? Obviously a convincing performance against Leeds, but the scoreline probably a bit deceptive there.
As well.
Yeah, you took your chances really well in that. Was it 5-1 and actually had it closer to 2-1? And then Wolves, very tricky opposition.
Yeah.
Probably should have got the result there. Wolves, that is. Obviously you came out the 3 points.
I think we were always going to start the season very slowly, as I've just said. Get to that international break is key for a lot of the clubs, to be honest with you. I just think players coming back from literally no pre-season, some of them coming after the Euros.
Did you draw with Wolves or did you beat them?
We beat them. Yeah, we beat them 1-0. Mason Greenwood scored again. But
Southampton, yeah, okay.
I just think that when you've got players coming back late from international duty, late because of COVID, every club for the first 3 to 5 games I think is going to struggle until people get up to speed. Yeah, and United are going to be no different. But I haven't been overly worried. I think Southampton, we should have won that game comfortably. That game should have been over in the first half with the amount of chances we missed. You know, Paul Pogba missing chances. I think straight away to those set piece opportunities we had. And we've kind of been dragged through a little bit by Mason Greenwood, right? 3 goals in his first 3 games. Just a frightening talent now. I dread to think how many goals he's going to score for United because he is absolutely ridiculous.
The difference between him and Anthony Martial at number 9 at the start of this season has been night and day, right? Martial started against Southampton and was very poor. Jaden Sancho not been great at the start of this season either. Do you put that down to sort of teething issues? Or
he's only started 1 game.
Yeah, and he's come on in 2 fixtures as well, right? But I think the one he did start against Southampton, like 0 dribbles.
No, against Wolves that was.
Wolves, sorry, 0 dribbles, 0 shots.
Yeah.
0 chances created.
I mean, he joined United. This is another example of why it's going to be slow start to season. Joined United ill. Yeah, I think burst the eardrum, which is never a great thing when he was on holiday or ear infection or something like that. And then he picked up a knock as well, didn't he? So he had to withdraw from the England camp. So it's going to be a bit of a slow start for Sancho. I mean, he started last season with Dortmund very slowly. Let's not forget, up to Christmas point, he was people were saying, is this the same Sancho as the United move? Kind of muddled his head, and then after Christmas he was just unplayable effectively. To think that, 20-year-old coming back to England, coming to one of the biggest clubs in the world, under huge pressure with a fee of £70+ million, isn't going to take some time to adapt and ease into a team that he's only started one game in, I think is ridiculous. So give Sancho time, he's going to be absolutely fine. I think United are going to get a lot better from November onwards, but that's that sort of time once that squad gels and you see Varane and Maguire form a very solid partnership, because Varane against Wolves looked like a Rolls Royce, really, really solid. So United are going to be fine. I'm really unworried about us this year, and I think Ollie's going to do a good job.
I mean, the one issue that we always kind of bring up that you do have is that DM position of Fred, and that showed especially in the Southampton game. God, I remember
the Wolves game more so. The Wolves game more so.
Okay.
The Wolves game was absolutely tragic. Honestly, it was tragic. It was like Adama Traore running past traffic cones at one stage, and that is going to be a problem throughout the course of the season. But at some stage, you've got to stop using it as an excuse. Like, not every title-winning side has the perfect player in every single position. I don't even think that's the case this season for any of the Premier League sides, maybe other than Chelsea. You could say City haven't got the number 9 they wanted.
Haven't got a left back either.
Yeah, exactly. Liverpool maybe haven't got the number 9 they want, or haven't got the replacement for Wijnaldum that they want necessarily, even though Diogo Jota looks like he's breaking through. I don't think there's the perfect player in every position for every team, other than maybe Chelsea, who do have just a ridiculously frightening squad. So at some stage you've got to stop using it as an excuse, and you've got to improve players via coaching, via tactics, and that's why you see Fred and Scott McTominay play as a two, because United are more balanced and are more effective when those two play together. And people bash Ollie for it constantly, but he's got better results with those two in midfield than when they haven't played in midfield. And I think over the course of the season, Varane will give that defensive midfielder more stability. We won't have to play the two against the small sides. I just really hope we get to see Donny this weekend. You know, Fred likely to be banned. I think that's still a little bit up in the air whether or not the Brazilian players are going to be banned or allowed to play. McTominay's just coming back from surgery. Matic, just against Southampton, just no. I think that was a clear sign that it was just one season too far for him. He's an extremely senior figure in the dressing room. And then Paul Pogba, unless he's got a lights-out defensive midfield next to him, you want him further up the pitch. You don't want him doing the defensive responsibility. So I really hope we get to see Donny play this weekend against Newcastle as one of those two midfield roles. It might end up being unlikely, but at some stage you've got to give him a chance and let him play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him deployed in a deeper role either, because I feel like your problems at the start of this season have been just the speed in which you progressed the ball up the pitch and got the ball to your dangerous players. And like, I know Sancho's only started one game, but Martial would not been great at number 9. Hasn't been great last season, was good the season before, so it's been a little while since he's kind of hit form. But there is a little kind of pattern emerging of you just not being able to get the ball up the pitch quick enough, unless teams set up against you, you know, like Leeds, for example, where you look very good in the transition.
We're amazing in the transition, but I do think that when Jaden Sancho gets to his best, that is really going to help that. He's a clearly incredibly progressive ball carrier, very good in the one-on-one, really good in tight spaces. Cristiano Ronaldo is inherently going to suck players into him, even if he's not incredible in build-up. As we all know, he's going to sit in around that box. He's not going to do an awful lot other than trying to score goals. But because he's going to be that presence, I do think he's going to magnetise players in, which is obviously a problem if you've also got Bruno, Sancho, Greenwood, Rashford to come back, Pogba operating in that sort of space. There's really no excuses for United not to be battering these sort of teams. No. The level of attacking quality in that side is amongst the best in Europe. So I don't have too many problems with United. I understand the expectation level has risen, but I back Ollie to rise to it as well.
Okay, so you don't think expectation is going to be a problem for United? Let's move on then.
Hopefully not. Fingers crossed.
Pretty comprehensive from Man United. You said you're doing some reading about Crystal Palace this morning. I mean, that was mainly confined to Eberechi Eze, right? But then I've got the problem down here for Crystal Palace as squad turnover, because they've had quite the summer, haven't they, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be easy to get rid of so many players, and ageing players as well, a lot of them. Gary Cahill comes to mind, Andros Townsend going to Everton. And by the looks of their transfer business, you sit there and you go, it is positive. It's a lot of young guys that they've brought in, Mark Gehi, Anderson, who we've been impressed by. And it's just about, you know, letting them kind of develop now and having that time with Patrick Vieira. And I thought Against Chelsea, weren't great, quite abysmal to be quite honest. However, they didn't have their full squad there. They were also still coming back.
It is Chelsea.
Slap 3-0.
Yeah, exactly.
Chelsea,
yeah, sure, exactly. And it is Chelsea. But however, since then they have had a few more players return, and they've been a bit more impressive. Conor Gallagher obviously didn't play as well. He's the Chelsea loanee. He's been brilliant for them. He's really good against West Ham as well.
I think he was really good in the second half of that game, though. Like in the first half, when he was trying to find his feet, I thought he's a bit rash.
Yeah, sure. But that's also his only second game as well
exactly.
for them as well. So it's taking time. And that's the big thing for me with Palace this season is it's going to be a bedding in period, right? I think we do keep mentioning the Vieira effect, but whatever manager is there, even if it was Roy Hodgson, like there was with so many players coming in and the turnover, there was always going to be a period of these players kind of finding their feet, understanding what player does what. When you're having so many different players, like the back fours, the two centre backs are completely different to what they were last year. So everyone's figuring it out, and with the way the effect of Vieira and what kind of football he wants to play, it's going to be different to what Hodgson wanted to play. So the whole club in general it's got to take its time to kind of realise what's happening.
Yeah, and they are taking the time, aren't they? It's not been a great start to the season, obviously, at the EFL Cup already, which I'm sure will disappoint fans because that's a sort of tournament they'll want to go a little bit further in. But I take what you've said and obviously take what we say with a pinch of salt as well, because it is so early in the season, exactly, and we have a really limited amount of data to go off. But like you look at their underlying numbers, and it's really not pretty at Crystal Palace. It's been far from seamless. They're taking like 6.7 shots per night, which is the worst in the league. They're conceding the 6th most. Obviously, without Eberechi Eze, who you've said might be well ahead of injury
There's
schedule.
There's rumours of him come back November. Sort of
It'd be unreal if he is.
Yeah, which was it a ruptured Achilles tendon?
End of October, start November.
Yeah, I mean, if you can come back from that level of injury in that sort of time, that's pretty heroic, isn't it? But he is very much needed in that squad. I think was one of their chief ball progressors last season. Him and Andros Townsend. Like losing Andros Townsend, I know we didn't mock Everton for signing Andros Townsend, but people were underwhelmed when Everton signed Andros Townsend. But not inconsequential for Crystal Palace. Like I think he carried the ball the most yards at Crystal Palace last season. Eberechi Eze was second after Wilfried Zaha for carries into the penalty area. So they're missing a lot of not only ball penetration with Townsend, but like they're not as dangerous without Eze, are nowhere near as dangerous. And Wilfried Zaha has looked isolated, hasn't he, at the start of the season. Christian Benteke, I think, is one of 2 players to be taken over 1 shot per night, which is pretty sad. That's like FDFC week 1 when everyone's blowing out their arse, isn't it? So I think it's like him and Conor Gallagher, but
adding like Odsonne Edouard as well, like
it's going to help big time.
As you said, it is very much because it's only been 3 games, and they've played, as I said, they've played Chelsea, they've played a pretty good West Ham as well. So
and Brentford.
Yeah, and Brentford, who have also been very impressive.
But then 3 of the next 4 games are Liverpool, Spurs, and Leicester.
I'd be
and I think
be
the 4th
very
is Brighton, which is not an easy test either. So
I would be shocked if they lost all of them.
Yeah. But that's that. Yeah, I think that a bigger issue than the squad turnover is Patrick Vieira. To be honest, I think that's a bigger problem for them. Is that they've not only got a big squad turnover, they've got a manager who is unproven at squad turnovers, unproven in the Premier League, still finding his feet as a coach really, and what his identity is. I think, and that when you put that alongside the big squad turnover, it's just a huge risk. Like it's a huge risk, and I really hope for Patrick Vieira's sake that he is able to produce, and I obviously like some of the things he said in the press conferences, and I like the idea that he wants to play a much more energetic style of football than Roy Hodgson wanted to play, and I think probably in his head, his ideal midfield 3, especially after the signing of Will Hughes in the long run, is probably Will Hughes, Eberechi Eze and Conor Gallagher in that midfield 3, which would be packed full of energy, packed full of players that can carry the ball. Will Hughes probably is the deepest of the 3, and then you might see Michael Elise, Zaha, Edouard going forward, and that's a really exciting side.
Not to mention the back line as well.
Exactly.
Extremely young too.
Tyreek Mitchell, Guehi, Joachim Anderson, player of the season last year, Guaita between the sticks. So it's an exciting team, but that team on paper we probably won't see until November. Like Elise's out injured, Eze's out injured. Like Zaha needed that tactical shift against West Ham to get the best out of him. Like I think do we think Patrick Vieira is going to stand a chance of like not still being there, but having goodwill alongside him in November if he's such a slow start.
I think there's clearly those concerns with the board as well, wasn't there? Because they tried to employ Lucien Favre, and that would have made perfect sense. Like here's a guiding, experienced hand to preside over this young squad, where it's been like 8 players coming in, 11 players going out. Average age has dropped by a couple of years. I think the average age of the players coming in was like 23. So yeah, they're really green, and that's why I'm not like too damning about the underlying numbers that we're seeing. But like you said, that the pressure's only going to build over the next month. And it'll be interesting to see if they can handle it. But I think there's like 5 or 6 teams that are worse than them. That's their saving grace.
And the pressure will build, but I really hope he doesn't get sacked. Like, I think it's way too early to be talking about stuff like that, to be honest with you, given, like you said, we've got a really limited pool. I think the West Ham result was actually a really good result, because West Ham are an exceptionally good side this season. And I'm sure they are going to get better over the next month or so when players come back, new faces start to gel. Conor Gallagher looks just such a talented player, man. Like, I really liked him at West Brom last season. I think he's going to be a great pickup on loan.
Like, if we were rebuilding Crystal Palace, like, we would have gone about it, I think, in a very similar way to Dougie Freedman. So, yeah, made them younger. The profile of player is great, and they've got good value for money. Like, none of those signings have been an overpay, really. Like, Edouard was only, 14 up front. Hughes, 300 senior appearances to his name, barely cost a penny, did he? So
I think even like Guehi, 18 million, probably the best centre back, or one of the top 3 centre backs in the Championship last season. Anderson,
16.
Leon, like, even though Fulham got twatted all over the place, like, he still did okay, didn't they?
Well, and that was with him and Areola both performing really, really well. So should we move on to West Ham, the next team on my list? And I think you put in the WhatsApp group last night, just what if something happens to Antonio? Do they come undone at the seams? What do we reckon?
We would have never, like 2 years ago, we would have never even imagined that being the issue. That what if Antonio got injured? Because also Antonio's fitness record isn't great. Like, he picks up injuries, or at least before the last year and a half, he's actually had a pretty solid return. But before that, he was getting injured quite a lot. And he's become this absolute animal for them, where everything kind of goes through him. The goal, was it against Palace that West Ham scored, or was it the first game?
It hit on the back of the head and rolls through, he smacks with his left foot.
No, where it's beautiful football.
It was beautiful football.
Yes. But he also had a part to play in it.
He did.
And everything kind of runs through him. He's not necessarily...
Well, they've scored 10 goals and he's contributed to 7 of them so far, just to illustrate your point.
He's a real, loves a purple patch. When he finds his form, he's very hard to stop.
He's such an unorthodox striker as well. He's not like something that you can find so easily. I mean, he's played right back for them, right? And he's now their number 9. But you're right. If something happened to him, they don't necessarily have any out-and-out options that would fill in there. Jared Bowen could maybe do so, and you would be surprised to see him go through the middle. But you do worry that, if he picked up an injury, especially because a long-term one as well, because those are the kind of ones that you did pick up.
They did have injuries towards the back end of last season with Antonio, and they covered it very well with Jesse Lingard, and Jesse Lingard picked up that void. And he's not a totally different style of player to a Ben Rama, to a Fornals, to a Vlasic, to a...
They started playing a bit of a 2 up front with Bowen and Lingard, and it worked okay. Yeah, it worked okay, but... This is the thing, like, it's not just if Antonio gets injured, it's also like, Nikola Vlasic is a good signing, I think contributed to like 54 goals and assists, I want to say, roughly, in like twice as many appearances for CSK Moscow, so a very healthy return in the RPL, but they've got to replace Jesse's like meteoric output as well.
Which was ridiculous.
But I think Saeed Benrahma's step up will cover a lot of that as well this season.
Already scored more goals this season than he did last season.
He's going to have a much improved season. Like, it felt like a real bedding in period last year, that time spent away from Brentford, like new faces, new
It was also Jesse Lingard was just so good that he couldn't get in over him.
Yeah, but equally, like, I think people expected more of Benrahma.
Oh no, 100%, especially after spending when he was at Brentford.
He was unplayable effectively in the Championship at times.
He got a respectable amount of assists, and the thing about like Benrahma and Fornals, like in that system, that David Moyes system, is they're expected to work so hard in like the midfield third. They do an awful lot of pressing in their own in the midfield third or the defensive third, really help out those fullbacks. And a lot of the progression at West Ham sort of come, like Soufal was incredible last year, wasn't he? Aaron Cresswell's like passing numbers, like very, very good. So in a way, they're expected to kind of put in the hard yards, and that comes maybe at the expense, at least when you're getting to grips with the system, of a few goals. That was the case with Benrahma anyway. But yeah, they look a little bit more free-flowing in that regard this season. Pablo Fornal, I think
Fornals has been maybe the best player in the league so far at the start of the season, or one of, like, top 5.
Wow.
I was about to say, I think Pablo Fornal is going to have a great year.
He's been outrageous.
And people wrote him off
Took
after
about 2 years,
a really difficult sort of 18 months. But
he's obviously not going to carry on throughout the whole season, like, at this level, because he's just been like unplayable. He's been so good, man, going forward. But yeah, overall, I agree that the problem is Antonio's replacement, but I back Moyes to figure out a system that works to cover it. Like I think the business is really interesting that they've operated. They've kind of I read a piece a couple of days ago. They've overhauled the recruitment department. They've had Mark Rockon come in, and he was at Croatia as a data analyst. He's come in as like their lead data analyst. And I think that's one of the reasons they've brought Vlasic in, actually, that he knows him very well. They've brought Rob Newman in as head of recruitment. He was on the transfer committee at Man City alongside Chicky. He was put on gardening leave and then joined West Ham. And I think their recruitment over the last 2 years has definitely been improved. It's looked really, really good. Like, I'm excited to see what Crowd does. Obviously, he's come in on loan as well, so it's pretty much a free hit there. And when you need cover for those 2 DMs, he's a decent option, because Rice at the moment is one of the best young midfielders, like holding midfielders in the world. He is outrageous. He's like a Rolls Royce. The way he just walks past people, he's so strong, he's great in the tackle. He's added this diagonal pass to his game that's massively underrated. I think the recruitment and the squad building by Moyes, Newman over this summer has been really good, really smart.
They needed to as well, obviously playing in the Europa League. They're going to be playing a lot more games this season, and they couldn't have just relied on that squad that they had last year, especially if they do pick up an injury, because the amount of games that if you go far in the Europa League as well, you'll be playing, can take its toll.
And what do you think of Zuma signing? From a Chelsea perspective, I think
Brilliant.
that's a really good move.
Brilliant. I mean, you expect him to kind of replace Dawson, who was ageing. And it would be Ogbonna in him, I think, as their back line.
I never know, it might be. He likes Dawson a lot.
Yeah,
Dawson's
exactly.
extremely
It could
reliable.
be either or. The thing with Zuma was, with the way Chelsea are playing their football now, with a passing philosophy, and it's not that Zuma can't pass, it's just he takes his time with it. It takes 2 touches before you can make that pass, whereas with Chelsea won that one pass. That's the thing that he's really, really good defender. One-on-one defending, all that kind of stuff. He's fairly quick as well. Unreal. He was Chelsea's best asset in the air last season. And I think from set pieces as well, West Ham are going to be already strong with Souček and Dawson and Ogbonna, adding Kurt Zouma to that as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up six goals in the league.
That's crazy. That's
honestly. I mean, I think he had 6 for Chelsea last year.
That's
or 5
unreal.
last year.
He is a monster in the air, isn't he? But yeah, you're right. With Souček, Rice, Zuma, Dawson, Ogbonna, that's a big team.
Antonio's not too shabby himself.
It's like David Moyes isn't like reinventing himself, is he? It's just kind of updating his old policies of having an extremely physical and capable squad, maybe a bit more tactically versatile, but like Zuma doesn't have to be the best passionist West Ham side because, like, to bring it back to Antonio, they are very comfortable with going long to him, aren't they?
Yeah,
and he's incredibly good at holding it up.
And Rice puts it into those corners, and Antonio will just run into the corner and beat the man and win a corner or win a throw-in, and it's such an effective tactic. It's so hard to defend against. So yeah, I think although it is a problem, the squad is good enough and the recruitment's been good enough to cover it, I think.
Yeah, but it is frightening. Like, I do think there'd be like a vastly inferior team without him. Like, you go from kind of competing for those Europa League spots to without Antonio, maybe like slipping between like 8th and 10th, I think, just because
it's possible.
I mean, Vlasic isn't going to fill that goals deficit, is he? And I do think maybe the sale of Sabala didn't win over many fans here, did he? But maybe it was a little bit premature in that sense. But who knows? Maybe if they're going really strong in January, they'll look to add in that department. But
yeah, I think their recruitment will improve as well with Newman coming in. Like, some of those signings he made at City were smart. Like, I think he was the guy who brought Laporte to the club and was instrumental in bringing Laporte to the club. And I know Laporte's not such a big figure there now, but I remember at the time Laporte signing in that first season of Laporte, he was really good. I think he was heavily involved in the Brahim Diaz move as well. And although it didn't work out at Manchester City, I think they sold him on for a significant profit. I think they bought him for like 400k and sold him on for an awful lot more. So I would be excited about not only this summer's window, but the next couple of windows if I was a West Ham fan.
Yeah, you'd imagine they've identified that problem already. They're looking because, like Zach said, I think Antonio's only started 24 games more than once for West Ham in his 6 seasons there.
He's not the youngest as well. They'll need to.
I think it's a bit Kane-like. It's a hard position to fill because Antonio, when he's fit, he starts. So you are coming in as a backup. Like it's a hard, and that's not always.
Jared Bowen could keep them ticking over as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying. So I wonder. I don't know their academy that well, West Ham's, but I wonder as well whether because they've got a decent track record with the guys they bring through. Whether they've got someone there that they could maybe use to fill the spot as well if needed.
Yeah, because they nearly didn't sign Crowell because Connor Coventry from the academy had an unreal pre-season, like highly thought of in the academy in that sort of deep line midfield role. And I know that David Moyes was really tempted just to have Connor Coventry as like one of the key sort of backups in that midfield, but I guess at the end of the day, it's just what we can get Crowell in on loan.
Yeah.
We know the connections there between like Souček, Kufal. And we've had success out there before, so that's just it's cost-free basically for them.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
All right, should we move on then? We go into next a club that I think does have some problems, Burnley. But overall, I think this is probably Burnley's best window in 5 years or like 4 years. Like
says a lot.
It does say a lot. Obviously, they don't have huge aspirations, but the problem, I think, with Burnley is the contract situation. I think they've got real problems with the contract situations at Burnley. Having Tarkowski and me in the final year of their contract, and Tarkowski's definitely going to leave. I think they wanted 20 million from this summer and nobody was willing to stump up the money. They've also got the problem that if they'd have sold him this summer, Brentford have a 35% sell-on fee on James Tarkowski. So if they'd have sold him for 20 million, they'd have lost 8 million to Brentford. So then, are you willing to just sell Tarkowski for 12 mil? You get more for staying in the league, really, and Tarkowski is likely to keep you in the league if you're Burnley. He's going to go for free next season. That's going to be a great signing for whoever picks him up for free. Me's going to go for free.
I'll pick them both up. Yeah, whoever needs a back.
Nick Pope's out of contract in 2023.
Yeah, there's 10. There's 10 first-team players.
That's a big
Harry
problem.
Peters,
like Bailey Peacock-Farrell, I think, went out on loan to Sheffield Wednesday because they are aware that Nick Pope probably isn't going to sign that renewal and he's going to leave either next summer for a fee or summer after for free. I just think that's a big problem. Even though the recruitment has been the best it's been in half a decade probably this summer, the contract situation.
Well, the biggest problem is that Sean Dyche's contract's also up, right? And then if you're in a position where you're losing your star assets, your manager, and you're going into a very tough division, and I suppose you've not identified another manager that can either come in and play in the same way that Dyche did, or
I think Dyche will sign a new deal, won't he? I think he'll sign a new deal.
He's been at like loggerheads with like the owners for a little while over investment and a sort of clarity of where the club is going, right? Because they were taken over in like the last 18 months. But
I think he must be happier with the recruitment now, though. Obviously, it's been a big overhaul at Burnley. I was at Burnley this week at the training ground and I was speaking to Sean Dyche, and there's an air of definitely there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, I think, in terms of overhaul in like the media departments, and behind the scenes there's definitely some turnover since ALK took charge of that club. And I know that Alan Pace is obviously heavily involved in everything they do now. I think he's on the transfer committee. He flew to France to personally convince Maxwell Cornet to join Burnley. And this is the owner we're talking about here, which is sometimes, I think,
not the best.
It can be a risk, can't it? If the owner, like, he obviously wanted a big summer and he's kind of got it. I think Collins is actually a good pickup, smart pickup with Tarkowski and me aging and out of contract. I think Connor Roberts is a great signing, really good signing. When you've got Phil Bardsley, who's 36, you've got Matt Loughton, who's 32, to sign 25-year-old Connor Roberts, who was one of Swansea's best players last season. I know he's running his contract down, but that was cheap as chips. I think that's a really good move. And then Maxwell Cornet, who is kind of, for Burnley, a bit of a star player, isn't it? Adds that wide depth. I definitely think that is a smart signing. I asked Sean Dyche actually where's he going to play, because you've got Dwight McNeil who wants to play left mid. He plays a flat 4-4-2. We've seen Cornet operate at left back at times, but do you equal your record fee for a left back Maxwell Cornet out of Lyon? I don't know. I feel like there's going to be something in the works there, but he was pretty cool. He wouldn't tell me. And then I just think that one position they probably should have got is a creator, a 10. They wanted Ryan Christie heavily, didn't they? They were really involved for Ryan Christie, and he picked Bournemouth over Burnley, and that's a Championship side. And I think that's a bit muddy, to be honest with you. If you're picking Championship sides over Burnley, who are in the Premier League, an established Premier League club at this stage as well, because they've been here for 6 consecutive seasons now. I think that's a bit muddy, because I think Ryan Christie would have been a really good pickup for a club like Burnley.
Yeah, I mean
you can probably tell us more.
he's probably gone for wages in that scenario, hasn't he? And
lifestyle as well.
And Bournemouth were willing to pay us like $2.5 million for a player with 4 months left on his contract. So he effectively paid for us to sign our new Greek centre forward from VVV Venlo. So it was an okay deal for Celtic. Maybe that played a part, but yeah, he would have suited Burnley's playing system well. Like he will shoot from anywhere. Like he's very speculative. Like I think what was always really underrated about him at Celtic was the amount of defensive work he put in for someone that was often deployed on the right wing. So he often led Celtic 4 tackles, 4 pressures, and yeah, maybe something that wasn't really we didn't put enough respect on it until we saw it used in a slightly more cultured way under Postecoglou. But yeah, he's just a missed opportunity for them for low fee for a player who was linked with Arsenal a year ago.
And like to then say that you're going to get more opportunities, you're going to get like probably a better lifestyle and stuff down in Bournemouth is like obviously like no offence to Bournemouth, but Burnley at this stage are a bigger club than Bournemouth. Like the stadium's better, stadium's bigger. Bournemouth is sunnier and on the beach, so like not saying Ryan Christie's picked that because he's on the beach, but I just think that's a bit of a shame for them. Like, and it is hard for them to recruit Burnley. Like it is a small town, it's not the most glamorous club. I think the last player before Maxwell Corner they signed from outside the UK was 5 years ago, and that was Stephen Defoe. So that didn't work out. Let's have it right. So the Dyche's obviously clearly changed his vibe since Defoe to come back to the Premier League, come back to what he knows, come back to very, very simple and structured players. That's probably why he's brought Aaron Lennon back to the club. But yeah, I just think the contract situation, I really do worry. If they go down this season, then the club is in real trouble because they're going to lose all of these players, go down, and then all their other best players are going to be in the last year of the contract and ain't going to be signing new deals within the Championship. That's an issue.
That's not how you want to be entering the Championship, is it?
No, it's not. Any other clubs you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, a club at the other end of that kind of spectrum maybe Leeds, in the way that they're kind of shedding a lot of the players, aren't they, that got them from the Championship to the Premier League. Like, it wasn't an insignificant turnover this season. Saw a lot of good players go out, didn't they? Helder Costa, Pablo Hernandez, Alioski, most prominently at left back. Kiko Casillas to a lesser extent, like Ian Poveda, who came on an awful lot for them. Ian Carlo Poveda, what a name as well. Juxtaposition, Ian and Poveda. But yeah, I just think that it's been interesting to see.
So what do you think is the problem with Leeds then?
It's been interesting to see them. I don't know, like, it's obviously been a tough second summer for them because they spent an awful lot of money in the first summer, didn't necessarily get the best out of those assets in the Premier League season. You look at, like, Rodrigo, for example, I think he cost £3 million per goal involvement. Wasn't fit for at least 50% of the season, was he? Diego Llorente in defence, I think only put in 14 starts. So, like, the board have clearly said to Bielsa, we need to get more money out of the assets that we gave to you last season. And I think the Dan James thing probably happened because of, like, the way, in part because of the way they started, and United also signing Ronaldo, obviously.
Like, it's an interesting one though. Like, is he a guaranteed starter? I know he's their record signing now, but in my head, like, they're two of their best assets are Jack Harrison and Rafinha. So unless he's playing Rafinha,
I think Rafinha can play in the middle.
Yeah, he might Rafinha in the middle.
And he's sort of been playing like a 3-1-3-3, hasn't he? Like, I don't know what he's been playing at the start of this season, but it's been like, obviously Leeds at the epicentre of, like, whatever Leeds do well is their wing play, like you said, and Rafinha not started the season all that well. Jack Harrison doesn't look to have the same like partnership with Firpo at the minute that he had with Alioski. That's obviously going to take a little bit of time to come to the fore. But yeah, they've made a really sluggish start, haven't they? Another side that, I think they won. The only game they won is their EFL Cup contest, right? Against Crewe Alexandra, I think. But yeah, what did you think to the Dan James signing then? 30 mil, good price for United?
Well, it's a good deal all round. I think United got definitely good money for him. I think they doubled their money, or close to double their money. I think he came in for about 14, 15. I think we sold him for about 26. So good profit on a player that probably didn't have a long-term future at United. Sadly, technical ability, maybe not quite of the level United need, but I think he's going to be a really good player for Leeds. I think Bielsa's going to get more out of him than Ollie did to start with.
For sure.
I think that he fits perfectly into their philosophy that you need to work bloody hard on and off the ball. You've got to be given everything and sprinting at all times, which is exactly what Dan James will do, and it's probably his best asset at United, to be honest with you, is off the ball work rate. I think he's really good in transition, which is something Leeds are excellent at, and sort of specialise in on the break. When Dan James gets going, you saw it for Wales at the Euros, he is really hard to stop, and he will win you fouls in good areas. So I think for the player, it's a good move. He's going to get better under Bielsa. For Leeds, they're signing a really good player. For United, they get a good fee. I think it's a good move all round. And I think the second season, I know you said he hasn't started that well. Obviously, he took his goal really well. Rafinha, I'm talking about here. Was it against Everton, I think, maybe? Where that left foot shot took it really well. I think Rafinha's going to have an outstanding season for Leeds. I think he's really going to take his game to the next level. I think this might be his last year at a club like Leeds before he goes to superstardom.
To Liverpool.
Potentially, yeah. Like his key passes have dropped from like over 2 to like around 1 this season. He's losing the ball like 26 times a game apparently at the moment. So like it's a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, when you see him in kind of like highlights and whatnot, he still has those lovely cultured like moments, doesn't he? And he is like a player like who I think is destined for a top team. But it's just been interesting to watch them sort of like struggle a little bit at the start of the season. Burnley like doubled up, tripled up on their wide men, and they didn't really have a means of combating that. Like they had to come behind against Everton, didn't they? They had to come behind against Burnley. So I feel like maybe they've been not figured out, but like teams are keying onto certain players, and it's turning them into like it's harder for Leeds to come up with an answer to that.
They might be a team that takes a while to get going as well, Leeds, because that like the way they want to play and the speed and intensity they want to play with.
They're still second in the league. People saying this are that Dan James is going to bring back the intensity to Leeds' forward line, but like they're still second for passes per defensive action, only to Man City maybe. Yeah. So like the intensity's still there. They're still winning the ball. It's just like teams are just a little bit wiser how to set up against them. But obviously it's only been 3 teams. Maybe some other schmucks will fall for it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the Dan James signs, I think Dukes maybe had them quite high in his predictions. I remember that. Where do you have them, Dukes? 5th, 6th? 6th. I think that would be a ridiculous season for Leeds. I think that they would be happy with anything between 10th and 8th.
Also depends as well.
That'd be mental. Yeah.
It also depends as well
for a second season in advance.
Whether Bamford can continue the form of last year.
Yeah.
It was at 17 goals, 7 assists in his first season back in the Premier League, and he was so is what everything went through. Hopefully as well, if he doesn't maybe reach that same heights, hopefully then what they'll be doing is thinking that okay, Rodrigo can also try and chip in a bit more. Hopefully he's not as injured as he was last year.
And we watched that Leeds Burnley game, and that was like, to say that was a physical encounter would be an understatement for Patrick Bamford. He was getting kicked all over the pitch. Like Tarkowski and me were just clattering Bamford every opportunity. That game as a whole was just like Burnley just made it muddy. Like they just fouling, yellows, cheap bits of play where they would just take players out on the transition and stuff. Burnley knew exactly what they were doing, and like Leeds against Burnley, when Burnley are being smart like that, and Leeds against United, where United basically just their kryptonite, like the perfect side to play against Leeds. I think 2 of the opening 3 games have been very tough for them, and even Everton have started the season well under Rafa. Like they're smart, they know what they want to do, they're really well organised. Calvert-Lewin is exceptional in that side. So Leeds, I think, will get better under Bielsa as soon as they start getting a little bit fitter, and they'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I don't think the problem's like
compared to the others,
terminal by any means. It's just been a little bit of a surprise to see them struggle, and like obviously take a conscious step back from the transfer market as well. But then
they spent very good on Dan James.
Do you want to talk about Newcastle as their problems? Obviously over.
Pretty obvious, isn't it? Yeah, big Mike Ashley.
Yeah,
still not sold the club.
And if Wilson gets injured,
he's injured for this weekend.
No, he's not.
He's got a thigh injury.
Thigh injury.
Oh my God, it's already started.
But yeah, the big problem is Ashley. It's just still Ashley there.
Like he's obviously just become a little bit more like reserved. They're paying for what Joe Willock in instalments, like that 20 mil. We've already discussed it on the show, haven't we? Like that's more than they wanted to spend this summer.
Yeah.
Like teams, this has been made all the more like significant by teams around them strengthening.
Yeah.
Like again, like it's just one of those things where their time could be up this season.
I mean, let's see how they do tomorrow. We could look like absolute fools if they take a result off United when Ronaldo's debut, which is
Isn't
not beyond the realms of
Are
possibility.
Newcastle the only team that you scored a hat-trick against?
Yeah, in the Premier League,
In the
but
Premier League.
that's obviously tomorrow, 3 p.m. Is there any other teams before we move on to quick fire questions you guys want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Chelsea or Arsenal or anything? What's the Chelsea problem? 'Cause Chelsea, in my head, don't have a single problem. The squad is
not to sound big-headed or biased or whatever, but like
you don't.
Yeah, there's not one that comes to mind. I mean, the only maybe question is that like, can Tuchel did what he did last year in 3 months over a whole season in a league. There was a couple of results last year. We lost to Aston Villa in the last game of the season. But there was nothing that like.
What about
that
keeping all
major.
the players happy?
That is that is probably the biggest one, right? He's got an attack of. So he's got if we keep playing the same formation, he's got 3 positions up top. Lukaku is always going to play. Mason Mount realistically is always going to play. So there's 1 position left for Ziyech, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, Timo Werner, Kai Havertz. Not all of them are going to be happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
but all the top clubs have that problem. Every top club
but
has
to that level of 5 attackers,
so. Look at Man City's forward line. You could say the exact same about Man City's forward line.
Yeah, possibly. And the other thing with Tuchel is that he does rotate quite a bit. And even if it is okay, maybe Mason or maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi plays on right wing back if needed. Christian Pulisic could go left wing back. He's injured again, isn't he? Anyway. Yeah, I mean Christian Pulisic, bless him. Like every time he suddenly gets back from an injury or he's on good form and playing well, he picks up another one. That hamstring issue, or is it calf, one or the other, has become a real pain.
He's done it again with the US national team.
And that was only just after getting back over. Again. Like he was injured, got back, didn't play a game for Chelsea, went to the US national team, got injured again.
Yeah.
Like it's becoming a bit of an issue now where you think, okay, this guy's a bit injury prone, and it's not necessarily the biggest frustration. One of the biggest frustrations with him is how consistent. Like when he's on his day, he can be the best player in the side. But that he can have a great month, but then the 3 months after that are terrible.
He's got Anthony Martial syndrome.
Possibly, but he's still so young. He's still so young. So I mean, if we're going for issues for Chelsea, that's probably that. I'm just trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal's like problems should just probably be kept for a separate episode. Like, we've had how to fix Arsenal.
Arsenal are going to bounce back, man. I'm telling you, I'm backing Arsenal to bounce back and have a good season.
I think that. Yeah, I mean, I think I had them as 5th and I was 6th, something like that. But
Norwich are going to get a smacking tomorrow by Arsenal.
Of course, they're like their start to the season's been overplayed.
This goes out on Sunday, by the way. So.
People forget how strongly they finished the season.
Imagine though now if Norwich beats Arsenal at the Emirates, if Norwich beats Arsenal at the Emirates on Saturday, I mean when I say meltdown, it is like there's going to be cracks in the London floors. It's going to be outrageous, mate.
Cracks in the London floors.
Earthquake's going to open up and swallow the Emirates.
Yeah, it would not be good.
Yeah, so we'll save that for a different time. I reckon move on to quick fires.
All right, let's do some quick fires then. Patrick Donald. What do you think of the World Cup every 2 years? Now, you've done a video on this, haven't you, Hamster?
I have. So you can come over to Eurofootball Daily and watch One-on-One, where I've ranted for about 2,000 words on this. Ultimately, like a little synopsis then, is that if this was really for the benefit of the 132 nations that have never qualified for a World Cup, fine. But quite clearly it's to claim back some ground, some territory on UEFA, on the European super clubs who dominate the financial landscape of football year in, year out. So just to give you like a bit of perspective, I think last year UEFA made 4 billion more than FIFA. And FIFA really only covers its costs on a World Cup cycle, so every 3 to 4 years. And that's why they've pushed for the Club World Cup. That's why they want this.
That's been taken away from Tokyo as well.
Yeah, they want to become a major player, so or re-establish themselves as the major player.
I just feel like they don't think about the players. Honestly, like the players getting to a point now with football, where obviously as the fans, so much football's amazing, right? I mean, for a fan point of view, like watching the World Cup every 2 years probably is pretty cool.
But would it get rid of the Euros then?
No, the Euros would be in between.
So
it would go World. And then also, because the other thing as well, how long is it then until Euros go? We'll do the Euros every 2 years. So it's World Cup Euros in 4 years. And the players are literally just going to start maybe no, I was going to say something a bit bad there, but the players, they're physical. Like we're already starting to see fatigue with them.
Player welfare
injuries,
is
like
not at the heart of this
window.
plan, but like Wenger has tried to combat that by saying that there's only going to be 2 international windows across the course of a season instead of 5. So that's a lot less travelling for players. That there's going to be a compulsory 25-day rest period after a major international tournament, which means that players would spend 2 months away from their clubs per season. So I'm not sure how the clubs are going to take that, particularly with all. Like, I know we're still in COVID times, particularly with like lucrative pre-season tournaments as well. So there's a lot of friction there. Like the big clubs, like the Premier League and UEFA, don't want this. But what FIFA are trying to do now, which is pretty cheeky considering they didn't support the Super League, but they didn't like
say no to it.
Yeah, totally throw it out. Trying to kind of harness how disgruntled everyone else is, like the best of the rest, so to speak, and then like push it through.
Do you see what they did 6 months ago?
We'll see.
How bad are they?
We'll see. I mean, Javier Tabas, who is the head honcho at the Spanish FA, was literally like the other day, it was like, Super League was Infantino's idea. It was like, he has missed the Super League. He was the architect behind the Super League. It's just like, okay. So yeah, do we trust FIFA to be like the vanguards of like progressing the global game by having a World Cup every 2 years?
The Arsene Wenger meltdown finally happened.
I don't know. The horrible thing is,
it's also such a weird thing. It's like you feel like Wenger at Arsenal would have just like that would never have been something he'd supported.
They've picked the ideal candidate to be the face of this thing.
Everyone loves him.
And with it being Wenger, you're like, shit, maybe there is something to this.
Yeah. All right. If you haven't already, want more information on it, go and watch Chris's one-on-one. There is a question here from True Cami Elcock, who says, what is everyone's stance now to prove Arsenal? I think we should just do that as a separate video. Maybe we'll do
Get Pat
a
in
how
before
to fix.
next week.
We're doing that on the podcast next week on how to fix Arsenal. So if you want more information on that Arsenal one, True Cami Elcock, go and watch that. Let's do one final quick fire then from Euro Expert. What pre-season predictions are you already regretting? I have to say I am regretting having Norwich and Brentford the wrong way around. I should have had Norwich in the relegation zone and Brentford 1 spot out. That one, I think, is my biggest regret. Even more of a regret than Arsenal 5th.
I think I put Norwich in. I think I didn't put Norwich in there, but I also didn't put Brentford in there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I still kind of back Villa to finish above Arsenal. I do.
You had that better than me, didn't you?
Yeah, with a couple of people. I could be like 80 quid out if that doesn't happen.
Mine was definitely like, I think maybe my head overplayed Liverpool's midfield situation. And part of me still thinks like they've got a good selection of midfielders. If they can stay fit, fine. But there's an awful lot of guys there that can't be interested to play over 25 games. But I think I put United ahead of Liverpool. And now I feel like Liverpool might finish 3rd, United might finish 4th. But that's the only like movement in my head.
I put Southampton in the relegation zone. And I don't think they're as bad as I actually thought they were going to be.
How big's your relegation zone?
My relegation zone, I think, was Southampton, Newcastle, and Watford.
But I do think that Southampton's squad, I actually agree with you on that. I think maybe we've misread slightly what Hasenhüttl was done.
Didn't he say that
summer.
it's his best squad he's ever had?
Yeah, he did say that, but he's always going to say that. Isn't he?
Very
Like,
true.
He's not going to say it's the worst about
of course,
at Southampton. But I do think that the signings hit the ground running a lot better than I expected.
Livramento's
been a lot better than I thought it would be.
Genpo's look class as well.
Not Genpo. Semeyu, and who's the guy that they had last year from Villarreal? Salisu.
Yeah, Salisu. Centre-halves look class.
Yeah, and also Adam Armstrong does look like an extremely solid finisher. Like, we know that he had the best non-penalty expected goals in the Championship last season, better than Ivan Toney, but I still wasn't sure, is he going to step up? He's going to step up, he's going to be fine. They are still missing that creator though. They are still missing that person who's going to put it on a plate for Adam Armstrong. But yeah, I also agree with you. I think maybe I should have had them more like in around 13th. 11th to 14th sort of spot.
Yeah, I had a relegation zone, so I'm definitely changing that if I can.
I think I had him like 16th, so that's maybe a little bit harsh. Right, let's finish on a personal question then from Louis Carr Lane. He says, favourite cheese? I don't eat a lot of cheeses other than cheddar and mozzarella.
I've not really ever
What?
I've not really
Sums
tried.
you up.
Like, this is going to sound, I know people are going to be like, oh, he's what a loser, but I think...
What a loser.
Halloumi?
You're not a loser.
Halloumi? I've just not really
yeah,
tried,
I've
not really tried that many cheeses though. Like, I probably have only had like 7.
Yeah.
And cheese string counts.
I mean, I don't really eat anything that's not like halloumi, cheddar and mozzarella. Like, I'll have like a bit of blue cheese and that on crackers and stuff.
Oh, won't touch blue cheese.
I just think it's so average.
Cheese is average.
Blue cheese.
But come on. Blue cheese on a burger
I couldn't
is
name
the
you
one.
more. I couldn't name you more than.
Divine.
Overplayed in my opinion.
You get yourself a little cambazola, which is half and half.
It's just, I think it's, maybe it's just my age. We're not totally different ages, but I don't know. But
And we're not that young anymore.
Yeah, but I just don't think. I just feel like the cheese game is overplayed in my head. The cheese game is overplayed.
If anything, it's underrated in my books.
I reckon I'd enjoy it. I'd probably happily go to a cheese tasting session. I just have never done it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I'm the same as you. I haven't had a wide enough spectrum of cheeses because
My palate's never tried.
Like they don't sell that many cheeses in like Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
And I don't shop anywhere that's not Sainsbury's, Tesco. Like I don't shop in supermarkets that are like a posh.
I'll bring some in next week.
A cheese tasting.
It's like red wine. It's like,
board.
If you want to see a cheese tasting Sunday vibes next week, hit that like button because I think people probably do want to see that. Yeah. If you want to see us fix Arsenal whilst eating cheese, then yeah, let us know in the comments and hit the like button. Anything to add then? What else do you want to push? Because we've got the one-on-one, we've got the podcast.
Always come over to Snapchat, another platform for you. We bring you daily content on there, and also we have another show called Transfer Talk where we update you on all the rumours.
Exactly. I'm just going to read out some of our best comments this week. Then, if you haven't already started leaving comments in our videos for us to read out on Sunday Vibes, make sure you do so now. We've got a Chelsea fan here, Zach.
Oh, go on,
London will always be blue. Says Lingard should have gone West Ham, but you can't blame the bloke for wanting to stay, especially when the GOAT joins. You can't miss that opportunity to play with him. Obviously,
yeah, I mean, there's that video, isn't there, of Lingard when he's younger.
Yeah.
It's like fair play to, and also he scored for England and literally did the Sue celebration. I really hope it goes well for Lingard.
And he's also in the final year of his contract, so if it doesn't work this year, he'll definitely leave, and he'll leave for free, and he'll get a good club because he'll be costing absolutely nothing. The next one from Will says, hard not to beat Basuma drum again, but I also can't see how United or a similar caliber team haven't picked him up yet. Yeah, I definitely think that is going to happen next year. His contract's up in 2023, which is not a great position for Brighton to be in.
50 mil offer, 40 mil offer for him.
I think that it'll be considerably cheaper than £50 million with 1 year left on his contract coming out of Brighton, mate. Like, Brighton can stand
Do you not think there'll be several people going after him as well? If he's going for like 30 million?
Yeah, I do, definitely, but I can't...
But even Chelsea have to start thinking
Brighton
about
can't afford to turn down £40 million for a player with 1 year left on his contract, man. That is...
I'm just thinking maybe a bit of a bidding war happens.
Never know, but I would be surprised to see him go for a lot more than 40. Emmanuel says there should be another transfer 11. We might think about doing it. He's got Ronaldo, Lukaku, Ramos, Varane, Dumfries, Saul, Camavinga, Grealish, Konate, Donnarumma and Malen as his 11. Let us know yours in the comments. And Logan also says Rashford has legendary status wrapped up no matter where he goes. Of course, that was the video, 10 players destined to become club legends. If you haven't watched that already, let us know what you thought of it. Go and do so right now. Yeah, leave your comments on the videos. Hit the like button down here. Thanks very much for watching.
Get on that Shropshire Blue as well. Great cheese.
Cheddar.